and welcome to the latest episode of Navigate the 9 to 5. My name's Tess, and I'm your host for today. And today we are talking about a really serious problem, actually. And this is probably the most important episode that I've ever done. The thing that we're talking about today, is how bad is too bad at work. So the reason that we're talking about this is recently a friend of ours called us up and he was like, I'm having a really tough time at work. And I won't go into the detail because obviously I don't want to betray his trust, but he was working in a workplace which is toxic with a capital T. I mean, calling people out publicly, demoting people publicly, like a lesson in how not to do things. He was physically, mentally, emotionally drained, so stressed, so anxious, sleepless nights, you name it. So, I want to talk to you today about how bad is too bad. And there's a few things that I think perhaps we don't think about when it comes to this. And that's what I was going to say. So the reason that our friend is staying in this job, because obviously you kind of hear that and you're like, why the hell are you still there? The reason that he's staying is because there is a promise of a potential paycheck because there's a deal going through. So this is something that I hear really commonly. I'm staying because of the money. I'm staying because of the security. I'm staying because of something financial. So if this is you, then hear me out. And I'm going to try and do this in like sort of 10 or 15 minutes or so. And this is actually one of the problems that I solved in Your Workplace Agony Aunt. So Your Workplace Agony Aunt is a weekly email that I do. You can submit your own problems. We solve any and every kind of workplace problem, from how bad is too bad to I fancy someone really inappropriate work to how do I be more strategic to I got promoted and my mate didn't. What do I do? Anything and everything. Submit your problem. I'll put the details in the show notes. But back to today's problem. How bad is too bad? So first up, when it comes to solving a problem, we need to define what the problem is. So my first question here is define bad. Like, how bad actually is it? Like I said, in the case of my friend, it really is toxic with a capital T. But how bad is your situation? Are you physically, mentally, and emotionally feeling horrendous? Are you really anxious every morning on the way into work? Do you get the Sunday scaries? Is it taking over your thoughts at night? Are you physically, mentally, emotionally broken? Are you crying a lot? Are you really angry? Do you get angry really easily, kind of thing? Just take a minute to think, how bad actually is this? And one really good sort of benchmark for this is if your best friend came to you and told you that he or she or they were in the situation that you are in, what would your advice be to them? Because I just want to stop here at this point and say, if you feel like my friend does, if you are physically, mentally, emotionally broken, which is absolutely where he is right now, my biggest piece of advice, my strongest recommendation is to take some time off. So I did this in a previous job of mine where things were getting too much. Something happened at work and I cried for 3 days. And this, my friends, is not a normal response to the thing that happened. I mean, it was a big deal to me, but it doesn't quantify crying for 3 days. So if this is you, go to the doctor, um, get signed off for 2 weeks. One isn't enough. One is just enough to get you a bit of space from work. One is only just enough to stop you thinking about work. Two is where you actually start to reconnect with who you are. And I think in the UK, so I did this. I went to the doctor. I was so stressed. I was absolutely broken. It was my burnout moment. And I said to the doctor, I'm like super stressed at work and I don't know what to do. And I was crying my eyes out and various other things at the time. And they signed me off and they gave me a proper note, which obviously I sent to work. And I have a feeling, although I'm not sure if this is entirely true, I think when you're signed off with stress, that people at work aren't actually allowed to contact you, which was amazing. It was everything that I needed. So, my advice, if you're feeling like this, go to the doctor, get signed off for 2 weeks. While you're off, whatever you do, don't check emails or log on. That's an order. The time is for you to reset. If you can, go away on holiday. If you can't afford that, or that's not the right time, it's not possible, or whatever, life. If that's not possible, then can you get a change of scene somehow? Can you perhaps go and stay with a friend? Can you perhaps ask family or friends around you to support you, perhaps with children if you've got children or people dependent on you, so that you can take that time just to tune back in, reconnect with you, go outside, get some space about from sorry, away from work, and remember who you are, do what you love, play with children, run run in the on the beach or whatever. Go and look at llamas, like they're just so silly. Watch a fish tank, spend time with loved ones, do whatever you can to just tune back into you. And that is just a little side note for how if you're feeling really, really bad right now. The second thing we do when it comes to solving a problem is we gather information about the problem itself. So here we need to understand the pros and cons of the job. Let's be objective about it. What's good, what's bad, and what's neither here nor there. And how does this fit with what you want right now or where you are in this current stage of life? So, for example, if if the job is really high pressure, really long hours, but a really good salary, then if you're a new parent, for example, and you want to get home for bed and bath time at, 5, 6 o'clock kind of thing, then those two things don't kind of match together, a job like that and, new parenthood. So just have a think about where you are right now and what you want in this particular stage of life. So yes, and I recommend writing a list for that and then scoring those answers, because some of them will be more important than others. So like I said, you might find that there are things that you like about the job that are the flexibility. And actually, if, for example, you are a parent and you want to, pick children up from school, then that might be a 10 out of 10 score. If you also really like the people that you work with, then that might be an 8 out of 10 score. Like, that is obviously super important, but actually it's not quite as important as the flexibility for right now for where you are. You also might have a really lovely office that you enjoy going to, but you might only want to do that once or twice a week. So actually that might be a 5 out of 10. Yes, it's really nice that you get to go there, but actually it's not super important for where you are right now. Then we look at possible solutions. So part 3 of solving a problem in a framework that I love to use is generating the possible solution. So if we keep this simple, there are just 2 solutions. So if there is a high score, if there's lots going for this job in the list that you've just created, the first thing is that you stay. And the second thing is that if there's a really low score and there's loads of things that you don't like about the job, then you leave. And I can't decide for you. But what I want to do here, what I'm trying to do here is trying to make it as objective as possible. What you might find is that you don't actually need to write that list at all. You sit down and you start thinking about the job, and even just the thought of it is enough to make you feel physically really anxious and really emotional. These, my friends, are all signals that this job is perhaps not for you. And what I will also add is that we often underestimate the impact of a job that we hate on all the key health pillars of life. So, as you know, or may not know, I look at holistic happiness and in a work context, and I work through the 6 key pillars of life. So that's physical health, social health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, and financial health. And when we work in a job that we dislike, all of these pillars are affected. And that, I believe, is why it affects us so much. It's not just that we are mentally unhealthy because we're stressed about it. It's the fact that actually it filters through into all aspects of our life. And I'm going to go through each one now and just tell you what this might look like. So, physical health. When we feel like this, we absolutely neglect our physical health, which is which is basically, I believe, the kind of foundations and cornerstones of feeling good. So, nutrition, movement, and sleep, these 3 things are kind of the holy trifecta of us feeling okay. If we're not eating well, if we're not moving our bodies, if we're not sleeping well, if we are self-medicating with alcohol, which is what I used to do, Don't get me wrong, still love a drink, but I used to drink a hell of a lot more than I do now. And it was because I was really unhappy in my job. I didn't know what the hell was going on. So physical health, this is going to be neglected, this is going to be affected, this is going to contribute to you feeling shit, basically. Social health, this goes one of two ways. I found I couldn't stop going out. I spent my life in the pub. I spent my life basically kind of chatting to my teammates who were equally as unsure about what the hell was going on as I was and equally stressed about it or bored. And we spent most of our lives in the pub. And actually, it was great. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved it. But it was not healthy by any stretch of the imagination. And then, of course, the next day we were hungover to shit, so terrible at our jobs. And then we just had this kind of cycle of getting really drunk and then just being really hungover. And that is not healthy and it doesn't make you feel good. Trust me. The other side of social health is that we stop going out completely. So we find that we get home and we just want to curl up and be on our own or watch TV and just tune out and forget about our day. Mental health. So this is often the bit that we notice the most because this is the which is where we kind of feel the most of our anxiety. Every email, every ping, every notification makes our heart go because we're really worried about what's next. And the whole that like our mental health is just sort of completely compromised. Emotional health. So I alluded to this earlier. In the case of my friend, his emotions are really, really close to the top. He's really close to tears a lot of the time, and he's feeling really, really super stressed about that. So, emotional health, our emotions are heightened. We spend a larger amount of time than usual either crying or being really angry, mostly at things that aren't the problem. And just in general, our emotions are much closer to the surface than usual. Spiritual health, we have zero connection to anyone or anything outside of ourselves because our head is full of all the issues at work. And then financial health, this actually takes a battering. What we really also misunderstand, and a lot of people do this when they take a job that they know isn't fulfilling, but they do it for the money. What we also underestimate is that we think we're going to take this job for or stay in this job and that we're going to do that for a month, a year, 2 years, 5 years to see the deals through, make lots of money. And we expect to be the same person at the end, but we're not. And there is no way that we would ever be the same person because we've had so much of that time has been spent with us feeling horrendous and we underestimate the impact that that has on us. Financially, we can't possibly make as much money if we feel like shit. Imagine if you rocked up to work every day feeling good. It wouldn't just be that one deal that you were waiting for. It might be 10 deals that you'd made that week or that month. It might be, so much more than that. It might be that you got an amazing bonus at the end of the year. It might be that you were recognized for the contribution that you were making. And because of that, you were put forward for promotion. So actually, waiting for a financial incentive, which a lot of the time is never actually promised, is compromising us in so many other ways. So then we get to the stage where we evaluate which of the solutions, sorry, we want to implement. So if you remember, there were essentially two solutions. One is leave, one is stay. But actually, I think there is a secret third solution. And two of the things that are most effective, like I said, is number one, take time off. And number two, quit in your mind, but don't quit. Emotionally detached from your job instead. So what I mean by this is, like I said, don't quit your job, but try and take the emotion out of the everyday. Try and put a bit of distance between you and the job. So when your boss has a go at you for something that's gone wrong, you need to find a way of remembering that that is not something that you have done necessarily. The likelihood is that your boss is having a bad day, that your boss is stressed about something, that there's something going on in their world that they are stressed about. Take the pressure off you, detach from the job. And it removes the emotion. So you can turn up to work, your boss might be a dick, but instead of taking it to heart, you suddenly kind of change your perspective and realize that actually that doesn't matter. Um, like I said, when I say quit in your mind, I don't mean actually quit the job. I mean just kind of continue to obviously turn up, continue to engage. But what I mean is kind of stop taking things personally. That's a really, really big difference. Unless you know you want to leave. And if you know that you want to leave because things are bad enough to want to leave, then of course you can kind of mentally quit. But my advice for that would be still stay present and correct in all the right places, kind of thing. So if you go into the office 2, 3 days a week or whatever, be present and correct on those days, and then use the days either side of that to kind of, look for other jobs and all that sort of thing while people can't see you essentially. Be present and correct in all the right places. Like I said, only you can make this decision, but just think about the reality of what it is that you're waiting for, why it is that you're hanging on. So, in some cases, people are really scared to leave. In some cases, there's a lot of fear around leaving. And in some cases, we sort of create things that don't exist around reasons that we can't. And actually, what we need to remember here is that we have a choice. We have a choice every single day, every single minute, every single hour that we sit at our desks and we decide to accept this role, this job that we hate or is really, really bad and is actually making us ill. That is our proactive choice. You, my friends, have the power to change this if you want to. So if you're feeling like having listened to what I've been talking about, if you feel like that this job is not for you, then my advice to you is potentially to mentally quit, start putting some things in place, looking for new roles, all this kind of thing. So detach yourself from the job. Um, Start redoing your CV, putting some ideas out there, putting some feelers out there to see um what other roles are out there. And actually, you can use this as a really good time to kind of take stock and evaluate how you feel. Go back to point number one of this kind of at the beginning of this recording, where we talked about getting really clear on what it was about the job that was so bad, and use that as a way to kind of write your dream job description. So you know that you don't want to work in an office, or you know that you don't want to do a particular type of work, or you know that you don't want to work in a particular type of company. Although what I would also say, like, don't necessarily kind of um brand all other similar companies in the same way. Don't kind of tar them with the same brush. That one company having a terrible culture or toxic culture or whatever doesn't necessarily mean that another one that's very similar has that same toxic culture. Everyone needs a chance to prove themselves, but also don't fall into the same thing again. And if you're waiting, like I said, let's come back to this point. If you're waiting for money, if it's a financial thing that you're holding on for, just think about the reality of that actual situation. So you might want to take a bit of time and ask yourselves these questions and objectively evaluate them. So first of all, how long is it going to take for that payment to actually arrive? Second of all, what's the opportunity cost? So like I said, if it's 6 months you're waiting for one payment for one deal, what might you have been able to earn in 6 months in another job that you were actually happy in and that you were good at? Three, is the payment guaranteed? Have you got it in writing? And four, if the deal goes through, is there then another lead time on you actually receiving the payment? Is there basically an even longer wait? In which case, it's not 3 months you're waiting, it's 6 months, or it's not 6 months, it's 9 months. On the flip side, I would also recommend that you take a little bit of time to think about the answers to these questions. So, number one, how bad is it actually? This is back to the first question that we asked at the beginning of this session. Number two, what is the evidence of this? So, my next question is, are you making assumptions? Because assumptions, for the most part, are incorrect. Which brings me to my next question. If I opened up the lines of communication, could I change this situation? The next question, am I taking responsibility for my part to play in this situation? Next question, can I put better boundaries in place to feel better? Next question, how can I prioritize my own physical health so I have a chance at feeling better? And then the last question, if I felt good, would I still feel like the workplace is toxic? Or would I still feel like I wanted to leave? Or would I still, what would I want to do? And then my final question is, as we mentioned before, if a friend came to me and described the exact same situation that I am in, what would I recommend to them? And that is usually, that one question alone is usually a really good barometer of where you are. So next up in the formula is implement the chosen solution. So that is over to you to do that. So like I said, I would start with the sort of secret third option and kind of do those evaluating questions, reflect on those questions, see how you feel, try and emotionally detach from the role. And if you're feeling really bad at the moment, take 2 weeks off. Don't resign or anything before you take that time off. Just take that time off to get a bit of perspective, start to feel like you again, and then come back to it and see how bad it is. And you will know because you'll feel better if you're not meant to be there or not, at which point then potentially take slightly different action. Last up, section 6 is where we monitor and part 6, sorry, is where we monitor and review. So you just monitor and review the solution that you've implemented. So tread carefully, listen to the signals that are being thrown your way, whether that's mentally, physically, feelings in your body are physical signals that things aren't okay. It's up to us to tune back into them. The anxiety, the tears, the anger, they're all trying to tell you something. When a job is seriously compromising your physical and social and mental and emotional and spiritual and financial health, in my mind, by this point, it's definitely too much. And you'd probably need to leave that role. Or, like I said, you just need to take some time off to feel like you again, because it might not be the role itself. Let's not forget that it might be other things that are affecting you at this point. So if you've recently been through a bereavement, or if you've recently perhaps been through something traumatic, I don't know, maybe a long-term relationship has ended, your marriage has ended, you're getting divorced, or you've just had a baby, you've gone into parenthood and you've got a whole new identity as a parent, or I don't know, I can't think of anything else. But if something like that has happened, if something big in your personal life has happened, then maybe it's not the job, but you probably need to take some time off to deal with that other thing that has happened. Last, and by no means least, if you are going through a similar situation at work, please reach out. I would love to chat to you if you're going through a really difficult time at the moment. It's you don't have to suffer in silence. There are also loads and loads of resources that can support you and help you, and various charities and things if you're feeling really, really low and want someone to talk to. I will share them in the show notes as well. So all that's left to say is please take some time to reflect. Please take some time to tune back in with you and how you are and how you're feeling. And yeah, just try and be honest with yourself, and importantly, try and be objective about the situation and how it is that you're really truly feeling, because only you know. Like I said, I can't make this decision for you, but if it's really, really bad, as in it's affecting all areas and all aspects of your life, then that's a pretty major signal that I think probably can't be ignored. Okay, thank you so much for making it through to the end. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for listening or watching, wherever you are, whatever platform you're on. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, follow, whatever it is you do on the platform that you're on, and please share it with a friend so that they can benefit from it too. But yes, thank you so much for being here. See you next time. Bye.